Continuamos con el próximo Keynote Speaker. Este es un espacio presentado por CYPHER Learning. Él es Graham Glass, es el CEO y founder de CYPHER Learning, quien nos va a acompañar desde California y va a presentar la necesidad de una plataforma de aprendizaje moderna. Recordamos que podés elegir el canal de inglés o la traducción simultánea en español. Adelante, Graham. Buen día.
Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Glass, and I'm the CEO and founder of CYPHER Learning. We provide a modern learning platform. And first, I have to say, Michael did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed everything that he was talking about skills development, about changing the way that we teach over time. And one of the reasons I loved it so much, it made my job way easier than I thought, because I only have 20 minutes to talk about modern learning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen now and tell you a little bit about modern learning. Here we go. So I'm going to refer to what Michael said, because he really did a superb job. You know, education is changing over time. Higher education institutions and businesses used to teach everything in pre-canned courses. They weren't very enjoyable to use. If you wanted to learn new skills in real time, if you wanted to have a much more dynamic, personalized pathway, it was really hard to do. So we believe that learning platforms, which are probably one of the most important bits of software that you will ever select for your institution, really need to be modern. And let me tell you a little bit more about what I mean by modern. Here we go. So I think when people talk about a modern platform, it's more than just looking good. So for example, let's just say that you are a student at a university, for example, and you're used to using beautiful software all day long on your Mac, and you sit down and your learning platform feels like an old version of Windows, then that's not going to create you a very modern environment. But learners also want delightful experiences. If they are taking a traditional course, they want them to be really engaging and fun. And if they are in a business setting or they want to upskill, they don't necessarily want to take an entire course to learn a new skill. And as Michael mentioned, a lot of these more modern platforms adopt a competency-based approach so that they can learn in a personalized way. So our feeling is the modern learner wants a beautiful, highly engaging, dynamic experience that is relevant to them. And unfortunately, as you probably know, traditional LMSs don't do that. You know, I've experienced a lot of different learning management systems over the years. And one of my colleagues was showing me a course that she was taking at quite a famous university using a traditional LMS, and it was just awful. I couldn't believe it. It felt like software that had been written back in the 1990s. So we really do feel that to provide a modern learning experience, the learning platform market needs to be disrupted, and people need to see a new way of providing a modern learning experience. And you can kind of look at the history of learning. Back in the early 2000s, a lot of platforms were very IT-centric. So the idea would, an administrator would create a course, they would upload it, and everyone would take it, and everybody hated it, but they had to do it. And then as time went by, people started giving more power to the instructors, and you had more flexibility in terms of how you created your courses. But still, the platforms were quite boring, quite basic. They didn't really provide a lot of modern functionality. But around now, there's a whole other set of new platforms coming on the scene that make learning far more enjoyable. They're competency-based, they're powered by AI, and they provide you a much richer learning experience. And I'm going to show you a demo, by the way, in about 5 minutes, just to kind of make my point. And the demo is going to have a surprise ending that I think will blow your minds. So we really do feel like there needs to be a disruption of learning. So we use the term, the 3 S's. The modern learning platforms are smart, they're strong, and they are stylish. So what do I mean by those terms? So firstly, when we talk about the smarts, we're talking about a competency-based approach, which is exactly what the previous speaker, Michael, talked about. And the idea is for every learner, you want to maintain a digital learning profile that knows your strengths and weaknesses at a fine grain. So it's not just, hey, Graham is good at computer science. It's Graham knows how to do Unix programming. He doesn't understand SQL very well. In other words, a very detailed digital learning profile. Because if you do that, then you can start creating a personal skills development pathway. So for example, ChatGPT is a new thing on the scene. And if I know that I want to learn a very specific thing, the platform can know, hey, Graham hasn't learned this before. Here's a recommendation. It might just simply be a video. It doesn't have to be a course. Little bits of bite-sized learning so you can upskill in the areas that are relevant to you. Now, if you want to take a regular course, you can, but these modern learning platforms are much more powerful than the previous generation of learning platforms. They also have sophisticated automation. And what I mean by that is that you can program the system and say, when somebody joins a particular course, automatically give them a video welcome from the instructor. And when they finish the first module, automatically give them points and badges as part of a gamification. And some of the slickest automation, which I'm going to show you in about 5 minutes, you can use AI to do some really amazing things these days. So those are some of the smarts capabilities: competency-based learning, AI-powered personal recommendations, and sophisticated automation. What about the strength part? So these systems don't go anywhere unless you can integrate them with all of your existing enterprise systems. They could be an SIS in higher institution. They could be your HRIS. If you're in a business, it could be your CRM system. So these modern platforms typically have enterprise workflow systems built into them to make it much more easy to integrate with your existing software. Obviously, you want to have incredible reporting and analytics to give you insights into how students are doing, how your instructors are doing. And very importantly, you need to bring humans together. So we don't view learning platforms as being things that separate people and keep them apart. You can use learning platforms to bring people together. So for example, in our particular platform, we've got something called the Universal Translator, so that anyone can talk with anyone in any language, and it does real-time language translation. Also, if people have the same learning goals, we'll automatically bring them together so they can study together, they can share notes, they can help each other to learn. And last but not least, stylish. I've seen so many learning platforms that look really, really old. And just imagine if you are a bold university, you've got a vision, you're talking about all these modern things, and then your student sits down and they see some old, barely graphical interface, lots of text everywhere, lots of PowerPoints everywhere. It's not dynamic. It just does not serve your brand well. So you want something that's beautiful. You want something where people can create really engaging content with automation and gamification, animations. And you really want world-class gamification, because that is something that gets people really engaged. And I'll give you just a couple of data points before I go into the demo. So we've teamed up with Dell. So Dell is the largest seller of hardware to the education system worldwide. And Dell selected the CYPHER learning platform for all of the large deals that they get involved with, both in higher education and also in business. So we will work with state governments to deploy the CYPHER platform so that all of their citizens can upskill and select courses from a variety of different areas like Coursera, edX, Udemy, and of course, courses that they build themselves. Another data point is with Microsoft. So we teamed up with Microsoft and ported our platform to run natively on Azure, and then together deployed the CYPHER platform for the entire country of Qatar for their K-12 system. And so now we've got the largest deployment of gamification in the world, and they're reporting they're seeing significantly higher engagement because of their deployment of the CYPHER platform for their K-12 system. So what I'm going to do now I think that's about 10 minutes down and 10 minutes to go. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you a demo so you know that it's not all just smoke and mirrors. So I hope you can see my screen. So this is the CYPHER platform. I apologize. I normally spend half an hour to an hour demo, not 10 minutes, but I think you will get the general idea. So first of all, when somebody logs in, they see a beautiful graphical user interface. And here are the kinds of standard features that you would see. So these are courses that I am instructing, because this is the instructor interface. So I'm teaching graphical design fundamentals. I'm enrolled in a bunch of courses, and I'll show you a course in a minute. But below, there is a new feature called goals. And this is where competency-based learning and personalized learning intersect. So you can select either a set of skills or a job, like I want to be a digital marketing manager, and you can add this to your list of goals. And what will happen automatically is we'll look at, here are all the competencies that you should master for this particular job. Here are the competencies that you have mastered so far, and we'll make recommendations on how to get better and how to close that skills gap. So it's like automatic bite-sized learning as you go, based on competencies and powered by AI. And this is something which is built seamlessly together with all the standard functionality. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you what a course looks like. And then I've got the secret, the surprise ending, which I don't want to run out of time for. So here is what a typical course looks like. First of all, we're looking at an instructor dashboard, and we're really keen on dashboards. So at a glance now, the instructors can see scores over time, mastery of competencies over time. They can see overviews of assessments. Over here, we've got built-in world-class gamification. And this little activity monitor in real time will show you everything that's happening in your course. And the reason that we do that is we want to make you feel like you are part of a community when you're using the CYPHER platform. You're not isolated from other humans. Here's what a typical set of modules looks like. And as you can see, it's beautiful. This is the modern learning experience. People don't want to see folders and text links and PDFs. Here is a beautiful graphical view of a course. So in this particular case, the course is made out of 12 modules. If I go into a particular module, and this is the instructor view, that the student view will not see so many editing things, but here's what a typical page of content looks like in the CYPHER platform. So you're going to see embedded images, embedded videos. When you complete modules, you're going to get points, you're going to get badges. Delightful, surprising things are going to happen as you go through the course. So I'll give you an example of automation, for example. Let's just say you want something like, hey, when you finish the first module, I want to award you a certain set of points. So I can come in here and completion. And here are completion actions, and I can select from a large number of automation actions. So if you like adaptive learning, you can hide or show content based on how well the student is doing. If you're into gamification, you can award points and badges and certificates based on how the student is doing. If you want to trigger integrations, you want to issue a credential through Credly. If you want to integrate with Azure message queues, if you want to use XAPI, you can trigger those integrations. And also, you might want to say, when you complete the course, I want to automatically add you to a social learning group so that everyone who completed the course can stay together. So a huge amount of automation capabilities, which is available to your end instructors. No programming is necessary. It's all point and click. If you're into competency-based learning, I can come down here. Where's my little mastery? And you can connect with thousands of industry standards. So we've got industry standard competency sets for job titles from all over the world built into the CYPHER platform. We've got support for almost all the world's academic standards, K through 20, that you can connect to, or you can build your own sets of competencies. So in this case, I'm teaching graphical design. Here are all the competencies that I'm going to be teaching, and this was all uploaded by us. And now when you create your modules, you can tag them with the competencies. So here, for example, here's a particular module, and I'm saying this module is teaching the following things. And competency-based learning unlocks personalized learning. So once you've done this, now you can automatically recommend resources, social groups, and courses that will help the student to achieve their competency goals. Now, I don't want to run out of time. I'm going to show you something really, really cool. So a lot of you might have been hearing about AI and hearing about, hey, I think technologies like ChatGPT can help you to write essays and cheat and like all this bad stuff. But here is something that we're releasing later this month that will really, really help the instructors within your business or higher ed. And we're going to be following up with AI-powered features that will help your students just as much. So a little backstory. I used to teach Unix and C programming when I first started as an educator. So I was teaching at the University of Texas at Dallas. I had never taught this thing before, so I had to create my own course from scratch. And the books were not very good, so I started by saying, well, what are the competencies that I'm going to teach? So I came up with a hierarchy of competencies related to Unix and C programming. And once I had the competencies, then I said, let me create the module outline. What's the sequence of this material over the period of a semester? And then for each module that I had to go in and write the content. I had to come up with written assessments. I had to come up with question banks. So as you can imagine, that took quite a lot of time. So the course I'm showing you right now, and I'm not going to say it's 100% polished, it's like 95%, was built completely automatically by AI. So it's called Unix and C programming. So let me just give you a quick tour. First of all, if you're into competency-based learning, here is what the AI came up with. And as you can see, it's a really nice hierarchical organization of all of the main things that you would want to study in this particular course. And when you use the AI to do this, after it's generated, you can do whatever you want. You can delete things, you can add things, you can modify them. This is not a fixed in stone. It's a little bit like you're a sculptor and the AI is creating you the first version of the statue, and then you go in and you refine it and make it yours. So first of all, it came up with this set of competencies. Then what it did, it came up with the module outline. And you can tell it, I want 11 modules, I want 20 modules. It's really up to you. Along with descriptions of every module. So for example, in Unix, here is the introduction to the Unix operating system. And what the AI came up with is 3 sections of content, followed by an essay with a rubric and a quiz. So for example, here is the history of Unix, followed by how are the key features of Unix. And once again, you can go in here and click edit and make any changes that you want. This is really about time saving. But it did a really nice job. Like I had to usually do this stuff all by hand. What about an essay question? So here's an essay assignment that it came up with. It also automatically generated a rubric for grading the essay. And every one of these criteria is competency based. So it's all linked to the competencies that it's teaching. And here is an automatic question bank filled with a bunch of questions that are all aligned to competencies. Now, I'm one of the first people to say this course is not perfect. I would improve upon it if I was going to teach. I would verify that everything was correct because AIs occasionally make mistakes. But what I'm trying to show you here is that in a modern platform, things can look beautiful. They are competency-based. They have AI-powered personalized recommendation system. And now they're able to save a huge amount of time for the people building the courses because so much of the scaffolding can be done through AI. So hopefully that's given you a pretty good idea about what's possible. I really do think the CYPHER platform dovetails beautifully with the future of education that the previous speaker, Michael, mentioned. So I do hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you are interested in more, then you can always visit our website at www.cypherlearning.com. And I think I made it in 20 minutes. Yay.
Muchas gracias, Graham. Estamos seguros de que has despertado muchísimas inquietudes en toda la audiencia. Hace unas semanas atrás, en Londres, tuvo lugar la feria más importante de tecnología educativa de Europa, Learning Technologies. Hoy tenemos el gusto de presentar a uno de sus directores, Donald Taylor. Este espacio es presentado por Kahoot y por Udemy, dos de los sponsor plata del FIAT 2023. Bienvenido.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Shall I share my screen? Okay. I just want to say at the beginning that I'm going to speak in English. So apologies for that. It looks like there's a problem with my slides loading suddenly. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to start trying to.
Do you hear
hello.
Me? We
Can you
cannot
hear me?
see your screen.
Yeah, can you hear me? I don't know what happened. There's a technical glitch. One moment. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Perfect, Donald. Go on.
I'm not sure what happened. I think I had a problem. Okay, muchas gracias a todos. I just want to say, hola a todos, buenas tardes. Lo siento, voy a hablar en inglés. I don't speak any Spanish. I started learning 2 weeks ago. Maybe el próximo año we can speak in Spanish. So I will try to share my slides again now, and let's go through a presentation. I'm going to speak for 20 minutes. I want to share with you some results of some research which I've done into learning trends in the world. And the key thing here is that I want to look at trends in the UK, trends across the world, but most importantly, the trends actually in Spain and in Latin America. Okay. I just want to check, can you see my slides okay before I start pressing any buttons? Yeah? You do see them, okay. Gracias, Josefino. Okay, let me press on. So, I want to say thank you to the people who sponsor the survey and my media partners. Great to be able to get views from across the world as to what's happening with learning and learning technologies internationally. I would love to be able to share these views with you now and also in the future. So I always say, this is a 20-minute presentation, but let's have a conversation afterwards. At the end, there are some QR codes. You can download the slides. You can link in with me. Let us keep talking together. 4 things I want to look at. I want to look at the results for 2023 from my survey. I want to look, in the most time I'm going to spend looking at the differences in geography across particularly Spain, Latin America, and the rest of the world. I want to look very briefly at the challenges the world of learning and development faces, and then just one conclusion for us. It's quite a lot of content. You can download the slides at the end. So there's a lot of numbers going to come here, but you can download the slides at the end. So I've done this survey for 10 years. I ask a very simple question in English. It's not translated. What will be hot in workplace learning in the next year? I give people 15 options. People choose 3 of those options, and we had almost 4,000 people from 100 countries answering this year. We have votes from all over the world, but most of the votes are from Europe and the UK. You can see there that half the votes come from the middle of the map. We have good cover in the Americas. Southeast Asia and Africa, not so good. But we have votes from all over the world. It's not evenly distributed. I'm going to show you what the results are for the whole world in just a moment. But first, there's a caveat. You know the distribution of innovation curve. The innovators go through to the laggards. The votes that I get on this survey are not all over this curve. The votes come from one side of the curve, the innovators and the early adopters. That's okay. I want to see, what are those people excited about? Because those people get excited, later the early majority get excited. I want to know which ideas move across the curve. Not all of them do, maybe 10, 20% do. And that's the exciting thing, to see what will be big in the future and what won't be. All right, here are the 15 options that I ask people to choose from, and I have other as well. Could you quickly, I'm going to have a sip of water. Could you quickly have a look in chat and just type in, what do you think will be one thing that will be hot this year? Very quickly, I'm going to sip some water. What do you think will be really hot this year from that list? Now, when I ask this question, AI is always the first answer because it's 2 letters. It's very quick to type. Now, everyone's saying AI. Skills. AI y metaverso. Fedora, Paolo. Everyone is saying AI or IA, which is, I'm guessing, intelligence artificial. Okay, upskilling, meta. Okay, this is great. Listen, everybody, whatever you write, it may be right. It may be right for you, in your company, in your country, in your context. You could be completely right. I'm going to show you what the world thought, but thank you for giving your answers there. It's really exciting. Here's what the world said. So we had 4,000 people from 100 countries, and this is what they said. So personalización y adaptación, that was down at number 6. Number 1, a lot of people said reskilling. A lot of people said artificial intelligence, and that's number 2. When you look at this table, you can see that there's a number in brackets afterwards. That's where that thing was last year. And that's quite important. We're going to look at that right now. I want to look just at the top of the table and see what the big trends this year are. Thank you for all the answers, by the way. And as I say, this is what the world thinks, but your answer for your context, for your company and your culture, that's what's right for you. Let's look at the top of the table. You can see here that reskilling and upskilling is number 1. It came onto the table 3 years ago, and it has been number 1 for 3 years. So it's obviously very popular. It's actually come down from last year. I want to talk very quickly about this and then move on. Firstly, what does it mean? Reskilling, you get new skills for a different job. Maybe you move sideways. Upskilling, you have your skills and you get more skills for your existing job. Okay. Why is everybody so enthusiastic about this across the world? If you look at the Google Trends report for reskilling and upskilling, you can see the line was pretty flat. It started to pick up in late 2019. Everyone was talking about the need to reskill and upskill because of automation, but there was one point which really triggered everything. The reskilling revolution, that was a report that came out from the World Economic Forum at the beginning of 2020. And when the World Economic Forum brings out a report, everybody else writes a report. You can see there's a big jump on the line there. That just shot up. And then afterwards, everybody was writing about reskilling and upskilling, and people were doing things. But what's very interesting from my survey's point of view is that when I added this to the survey for the first time in 2021, the world agreed that reskilling and upskilling was important. Look, everybody was 13% or 12%, everybody except for South America. Very interestingly, South America was at 9.3%. We'll come back to that in a second. So this was the vote in 2021. The world agreed it was important. And then we come through to this year, 2023. There's much more variation. There's a really big vote in South East Asia, in Malaysia in particular. South America is the same at 9.3%. So it's no longer homogenous. The vote has broken up. Some people, particularly North America, are much less excited about it. Okay, let's move on. What else do we have? Artificial intelligence at number 2. Last year, it was number 12. That's a huge jump. That's never happened before. What normally happens over time is that something is hot and exciting, and it becomes less hot over time. Mobile delivery is less hot because, well, it was exciting in 2014 when I started the survey, but now everybody uses it. Artificial intelligence was following the same sort of pattern. It went up, it came down, it bounced a bit, and then in the most recent survey, it jumped up enormously, 4.5%, 10 places on the table. That has never happened before. Why? Well, you only have to think back to last November and December, and you know why. This is Google interests trends in chat GPT, or I should say chat GPT, and you can see nothing happens, and then it takes off like a rocket. And what happened was chat GPT was launched at the end of November. At the beginning of December, I launched my survey, and the interest did not stop. But not everybody in the world agrees equally about the importance of ChatGPT. Look how spread out the votes are. Not so big in North America, really big. This is Turkey and Israel being super interested. In South America, people just don't care. We're going to come back to South America in a minute. The vote was also very spread across the different sectors that people work in. Education, much more concerned about AI and ChatGPT, but AI, than workplace learning and development. Look at that, it's just 6.9%, half of the interest of education. I think if I did the survey today, not back in December, the results would be different. I'd like to look at geography. I'd like to look at how those votes have gone, not for the whole world, but for Spain and South America in particular. So to set the point, generally, I look for patterns in things where it takes place over time with large enough numbers of people. So if I look at Germany and Poland, I can see that their vote for collaborative and social learning for 5 years has been predictably different. Ileana raises a really good point about ChatGPT. So have a look at the chat and please continue the conversation in English or Espanol or anything else. Very good point, thank you. I look for data where I can see a pattern that is strong and takes place over time, like here. So let's see, are there similar patterns in the Spanish and other speaking parts of the world, like in Brazil, which of course is Portuguese speaking? Yes, there are patterns. North America always rates technology higher, and it puts artificial intelligence high, and it always rates collaborative learning lower. South America always rates collaboration higher, and in this case, most recent year for artificial intelligence, put it that really low down, much less important than anything else. So let's look at what's happening with Brazil in particular, which is the biggest country voting in South America. We've got 251 votes from there. How is that different from the rest of the world? Brazil has always voted very high for collaborative and social learning. And personalization was high this year. Okay, Mexico is considered North America for me. North America is from Canada down to the Panama Canal for the purposes of this, and I use the UN guidelines for that, Marcella. I can provide more details. So that's how Brazil has always voted more for collaboration. In contrast, other countries have voted very high for reskilling, upskilling, and artificial intelligence. That doesn't rank for Brazil. Why? I speak to the Brazilians about this every year, and they say it's cultural differences. I try not to put cultural differences in for things, but honestly, I really think they have a point there. I think there's a very strong social feeling in South America generally that doesn't exist possibly in certainly North America and generally in other countries on the survey. And it is something, Brazil's only given large votes for 3 years, but over those 3 years, you can see that it is an absolutely consistent trend. Let's look at Spain and the rest of the world. Spain was less interested in artificial intelligence, which I was surprised by because I know a lot of people doing interesting stuff with AI in Spain. And if you look at Spain in Europe, it's the same actually, their vote for AI, as it is in the UK. Only two countries scored less. Ukraine, that was a special case. They didn't have access to ChatGPT. Ireland scored really low. And that was because they had lots of technical layoffs, lots of unemployment suddenly, and they weren't interested in AI. Just going to check. I've got a raised hand. I'm going to keep talking and keep pressing through. Okay. Looking at Spain versus the rest of the world, then, we can see that in Spain, skills-based talent management is much higher than the rest of the world. And I don't know why that is, but it's possibly to do with the number of companies in Spain doing work in that field. And coaching and mentoring, really, really low. It's the lowest country of all the big countries who are voting. In Spain, the vote for coaching and mentoring was the lowest, and I have no idea. Gabriella, look, please keep your ideas coming in the chat. That's a great idea. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I am giving you the data. I can interpret it a bit. You're the people who understand things more and can interpret it for me. All right, let's compare Spain and Brazil. How do they shape up against each other? Well, the Brazilians we know love collaborative and social learning, and it's not so strong in Spain, despite Spain having a very strong social culture. So that's an interesting difference. And at the same time, the pattern we've seen elsewhere, that reskilling, upskilling is more highly thought of in Spain than it is in Brazil. And yes, the workshops will be starting shortly. And those patterns, as I say, they're not sudden, they're not just this year, they are over time. Artificial intelligence, it might look like there's a big difference, but just consider the trend over time. Both Spain and Brazil have followed exactly the same trend as everybody else, but in Brazil, the interest in AI did not increase this year. It did in Spain, like the rest of the world. Interesting to know why. Maybe it will jump up in Brazil. I ask everybody each year, what's your biggest challenge for this year? And well, I just very quickly, 1,600 people responded. It is very interesting that this year, more people spoke about budget and impact than last year. So the big thing that's a challenge for people in learning and development this year, and this absolutely matches my experience talking to people, the budget, showing the value. Those words were used much more this year than they were used last year. And that's in all languages, because we have like 10 or 12 languages of responses. And interestingly, people engagement skills and any words to do with the pandemic, understandably, used less this year. Just one word to finish with. Sweden has always voted very highly for collaborative learning, but then in 2022, Sweden voted to put it in second place and put reskilling and upskilling with an absolutely massive vote in the first place. And I said to the Swedes, what's happening? Well, they said, Don, it's very simple. Your survey started in December. In August, 3 months earlier, a book came out. The book was called Upskill och Reskill by Per Lager. We do react in learning and development to the latest thing. So my question for you, we won't answer it now, but my question for you is this surge of interest in AI just like a book being published, or is it more fundamental? Is it something that's going to change how you do your work? Personally, I believe that AI is fundamental and will change how we live our lives and do our work in learning and development. but it remains to be seen. You have 2 QR codes there, one to connect with me on LinkedIn or to get my profile, and one to download the slides, because I went through those slides quite quickly. There's lots of numbers. If you want to download them, they are there for you to read. Okay, and we are listo, that's 20 minutes exactly. We are listo, I think, for the rest of the conference.
Gracias, Donald, por tu entusiasmo, tu conocimiento y tu experiencia. Gracias nuevamente a todos los keynote speakers de este primer día de Fiat 2023. Ahora es el espacio de 2 workshops en simultáneo. Cada uno tiene una duración de 60 minutos. Desde el lobby van a poder seleccionar el workshop en el que quieran participar. En la sala 1 podrán vivenciar el workshop El Soundtrack de tu organización. Está a cargo de Julieta Rodríguez Montelongo, de Learning Success Manager. Ella es de Netex Learning Mexico. Y en la sala 2 van a poder vivenciar el workshop La importancia del autoconocimiento de la estrategia de capacitación, moderado por César Suárez, el Country Director de Good Habits. Antes de comenzar, haremos una pausa de unos minutos, justamente para buscar algo rico para comer, tomar un café e ir pensando a qué workshop quieren participar. Iniciamos en 10 minutos, a las 9:40 Central Time.